clicking stars tutorial. This game is going to be different than the previous two. We're going to use types and more files. We're not going to write the whole game in main. In bigger games you have like I don't know, sometimes even hundreds of files all connected to the main file. So let's see what we have here, what the game is about. Oh, that's the project. Let's just a second. That's the game. You have stars, they're fading out. You must click them before they fade. If they fade, you click the sun, and then you need to click them as fast as you can, and you have a score beside. And when they're faded out, apparently you can still click them, but doesn't matter. Usually there's a feature that doesn't let you click them. So to see where the stars are after they fade, you click the sun. The thing where you can click on them when they're not visible can be fixed with an if. Maybe we'll fix it in this tutorial series. So basically this is not only a tutorial for game programming, it's also a good exercise in game design. Like, let's say we have one star we had to click. That would be like a game that would be over in 5 seconds. Let's say we have many stars we can click. So now it's a 7 seconds game. So now let's make them fade out. So now you have a game that maybe will last, I don't know, like 10 seconds. Like the player will try to click the stars as fast as he can before they fade, but then you add the sun and it becomes a much longer game where you have this game loop with the features stacked on top of each other. The star clicking, more than one star you need to click, and the fade mechanic. And well, you see what the game is about. It's not that hard. So it's a great example of feature layering. So basically you start with an idea, like click an object, and then you add more features to it, like more objects or fade and the sun itself. So in this first tutorial we will just do the boilerplate code. We won't write any logic or anything, just the boilerplate code. So we said we wanted to include 2 more files. We will use the insert keyword, and we will insert 2 files, star.agc and sun.agc. So let's create those files. New file, yes, and we call this one star.agc and sun.agc. So here in star.agc we'll put all the logic and all the functions and everything that is related to star, and in sun we'll do the same. Mostly it will hold a type, which is actually a struct, but in AppGameKit they call it a type, and a few methods that are related to that type. Okay, so let's write more boilerplate code. So we'll need star image ID, star img ID. So the star img will be 1 and the sun image ID will be 2. That's for loading the images. And let's make it bigger so it's easier for you to see me code. Let's see, is it this good size? Yeah, very good. Let's show you the images. They're in media already. That's the star, That's the sun. Both are PNGs. So let's see. We'll need something to hold the points. Global points equals 0. So now when we increment points, we'll, when the player clicks a star or something, so we'll increment this variable, and that will also show it. The easiest way to do it is print points. So usually you'd want to create text like we did in the picking sticks, but for this purpose print will be enough. So let's load images. Load image star img id. That's for star.png. Do the same for the sun. So yeah, we'll only have time for boilerplate code, and there is a lot of boilerplate code. So we'll have a lot of stars. So we'll put them in an array once we create the custom type of star. So we'll call this star array as star array. This will return an error because we don't have this type. We'll create it in a moment. Star. Okay. So in this array we'll put all the star objects, and when we want to manipulate the stars, like their position, if they're clicked or whatever, we'll loop this array and search for the star we currently want to update, or the star we currently clicked, or whatever. So now we're going to create the star type, so we won't get the error. Yeah, don't put it at the first line. I don't know, it's an AppGameKit bug or something. So start from the second line. Type star and type. So that's how you create a struct or an object. An object's basically a struct is an object without methods, only attributes. That's what you have in AppGameKit. It's better than nothing. Arrays of objects, looping arrays of objects. Yeah. So x, it will have an x and y position. X as float and y as float. So we'll have the star's position, its opacity, as we want to keep track of its opacity. Like if its opacity is 0, then you can't click it. We'll add this feature, like even though it wasn't in the demo I showed you at the beginning of the video. Let's see, we'll need the star ID. It's actually not the star ID, and the sprite ID. So the star ID will be the index of the star in the star array, and the sprite ID will be the actual sprite that represents the star in the AppGameKit, basically the star image object in AppGameKit. Like when you do create sprite, or when you do set sprite position, if let's say you want to set the star's position, you'll need its ID. So that will hold the sprite's ID. and that will hold the index in the array. Let's say we want to move star at index 2, so we get star at index 2, or we get a star and we want to get its index in the array, so we can change its attribute values, because in AppGameKit the only way to change a star or any type of object attributes is by getting its pointer, its exact pointer or reference. So an array is basically something that holds references. Like every item in the array is a reference in the memory. So let's say I get the star as an object from some function, and I change its values. It won't change it like on the screen. It won't change its position or anything, unless I use the star ID. But if I want to change its X of the star type, because it's useful for us, the X or the opacity, I'll need to get the star exact index of the star I want to change. So let's say I get some star from some function. I will get its star ID, and then I'll call star array at position of star ID, which is the index, and then I'll change its X, Y, or opacity, and then it will change the actual star in the memory, and not a copy of that star's memory. Yeah, I know, it's confusing, it's weird, it took a while for me to get it too, but that's AppGameKit basic. What can you do? Let's see. So if we go back here, we'll need a couple of methods. We said we're writing boilerplate code, so we'll need a method called methods that will run each update. Click star, click sun, and fade out star. So we'll need to create these three methods. We'll create them in star. So function click star. So what this will do is loop all the stars in star array and check if you clicked one of them. Let's see, we'll need this in sun too. Click sun, and we had fade out star. This will make all the stars fade out at the same time. Okay, let's see what else. Yeah, we'll need a method to create a star. That will be the easiest thing to do. Instead of creating an object and starting to populate each of its attributes, we'll do it in one place, with one function, with one line of code. Create star. And function. So it will get X as float. Just a second. And the star ID, which will be the index of the star, the position of the star in star array. So to create a type, it's very easy. S as star, that's it. We created a star object here, and I think we would like to return it at the end. So now it will return an empty star object. This will be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. This will actually be 0, 0.0, 0, 0.0, and 0, 0.0, and 2 zeros. So now we'll populate, well, we'll actually give them their values. S.x equals this x. Same for the y. And S dot star ID will be SID, and the sprite ID itself, I don't remember why I did it like that, +1. Oh right, because the array the array has an index of 0, so we don't want to end up with a sprite ID of 0, which will return an error. So we start from basically 1. Like if it's 0, this will be 1. If this is 1, this will be 2. So the array starts to count from 0, our sprite IDs start to count from 1. And finally we'll create the sprite on the screen, on the game app GameKit framework. Create sprite. So we'll give it s.spriteID and sprite ID image. Sprite image ID. Star image ID, I mean. The image of the star. So the star sprite ID and the star image we loaded earlier. That's it. That's how you create a star. We'll need the same one for the sun. Let's create a type for the sun. So it will basically have the same things, except the opacity. Same attributes, except for opacity, because its opacity doesn't change. So when we copy this, it's very easy, because they're so similar. We change this to sun, and this to sun. And instead of giving it a sprite ID, we'll hardcode it. We'll give it an arbitrary number, 50 and 51, and we don't need that. We don't even need that. So we just gave it an arbitrary ID 50, because we'll create stars dynamically with a loop, and we don't want to like give it a number like 7, so we accidentally create 7 stars, and then when we create a sun, it will have the same ID and we'll have an error. So 51, they'll never clash. That's just an arbitrary number, it can be anything. We need to change this to the sun image ID. Yes, so we have a few more methods we need to create. We'll need to change the sprite's position randomly for both the star and the sun when they are clicked. So we'll create another method called randPose. randPose will change the stars x and y on the array too, so we'll have this data saved. And not that we need it, we can always get it from the sprite, but I like to have it saved on x and y, where it's easy to access. So this will set a random position for our star, and we'll need one for the sun too. Because it's not on an array, we'll need to create its own rand pose, so we'll call it rand pose 2. That will be a random position for the sun when it's clicked, and random position for the star when it's clicked. Rand pose for sun, rand pose for star. So let's see. Don't remember if we need more functions. Let me remember for a moment. Yeah, fade out. Oh, we did it. Okay, so we're kind of finished with our boilerplate code, but let me create our stars. So for I equals 0 to 4. Next I. So this loop will create the stars and put them in the star array. So let's create a temporary star, SS star, so we can use it in the loop. S equals create star. So let's give it 15, so we can see it, and I as its index. That will be the index in the array. And then we'll insert it into the array. Not insert. So the first time this loop runs, I will be 0, and also the first position in stars array will be 0 when we insert the star. Second time I will be 1, and also the second item's index in the array will be 1 too. So when we pass I here, it will go to the star ID, which is actually the star index in the array, place it here, and then create also the sprite ID for the actual star in the game world, for the star in the app game kit framework. We create it as a sprite. In app game kit it's represented as a star, as a sprite I mean, and in our clicker game framework it's represented as a star in our array, and we save data on that star, including its sprite ID in case we want to manipulate the sprite of the star. So a star has a sprite, and it's inside star array, and it's also, using app game kit's features like sprite. So it also has a sprite. See, sprite ID. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. I told you it will be different than previous games. We create an actual framework. Let's see, they will all be in position 15. Okay. What's the error? Parameter x has already been defined. Why? What was the error again? Star image ID is used without being defined or initialized. It needs to be global. So yeah, here are all the stars. That's the point. And we can basically also create the sun. And we'll make it global. Global sun underscore as sun. Sun underscores equals create sun. Doesn't have a sprite ID, no. So let's see. That's our sun, that's our stars. Okay, so we have, I think we have all the boilerplate code we need for the game. In the next tutorials we'll just have to fill these functions, so we have a plan for our game. We need to create a functionality for clicking the stars, clicking the suns, fade out star, random position for the star, and random position for the sun. I hoped I explained everything in a way you can understand how it works and why I used an array of stars and why do we need a sprite ID and what's the star ID, which is actually an index. It's the indexing of the star in the star array. Anyway, if you don't understand this or it's too complex or an explanation, you can always contact me either via wherever you watch this video. If it has a Q&A or messages, contact me. Or if you can comment on this video, you can contact me and ask me any question you want. I'll try to answer it. And that's it for this video.